Thank you very much. Hello to everyone. Good morning for you. Yes, I'm Sara. I am going to show some of my experiences, and I'm honored that have this chance to have your feedbacks on my thoughts and experiences. Let's go through.
Sara, excuse me, I interrupt you a little bit. So we are going to record this seminar. So for those that couldn't join us today, just wanted to get a permission for that, if you don't mind. So we are
okay,
going to record.
That's okay. Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
First of all, let's look at very quickly on the list of the contents. I go very briefly introduce myself and the Iranian Institute of Innovation and Technological Studies. Then we go to the big picture of Iranian education system and today its requirements. And then we go through TRIZ and some of its achievements that can help the education systems to be improved. And then we go through some experiences of using TRIZ at schools or for kids around the world. And then we go to our original contribution in Iran as the AboAyeneh school as our innovation. And then very few steps talking about the future. As you told, yes, I was graduating mostly in the field of engineering, industrial and mechanical, but always my research field was focused on the problem solving and how to improve the problem solving skills of the people, especially in the Ph.D. I was working on the R&D engineers skills in the field of problem solving, as you said, in the Salimi at Italy and in the laboratory of methods and tools for product design. In parallel, always I was working for Iranian Institute of Innovation and Technological Studies that we aimed to make it wider, the usage of TRIZ in Iran. Then we developed 3 units for our institute: TRIZ Consultancy Center, Training Education Center, and Innovation Center. Today we are going to focus very quickly on A school. It stands for AboAyeneh school, with you share some experiences. Let's go through some comments on the Iranian education system very quickly. If we want to evaluate any education system, one of the important aspects is the successful work of the graduated people in the companies, businesses, and we can say the society. So we can see if the society and the businesses are go through 4 different ages, as you see in the picture, we know how to solve the problems that we passed. For example, we know how to solve the problems during the industrial age. In each step on it, for example, new products, new services, and new experiments. And also we know how to solve our problems to go from to push our companies from industrial age to information age. But when we want to think about how to improve our companies, our business models, our products and service from information age to molecular ones, let's say that we face lots of unknown problems that we don't know how to solve them, especially when we are thinking about NBIC, means nano, bio, information, and cognitive high technologies. So from this perspective, we usually say that we can look at the problems in 2 terms: typical standard problems, non-typical, and non-standard problems. The typical problems are stand for the problems that we know how to formulate them and how to solve them. In this approach, we usually go formulate the problem and then find a standard solution for that. And if this standard solution completely fix or match with our situation, then we use it or apply it. And if we need some changes, we improve the standard solution and use it. It's the knowledge or a skill that we usually learn during our bachelor in the universities, bachelor field in the universities, when we exactly select one of the applied science that we go through it and continue our education. But the other hand, for the non-typical and non-standard problems, we usually don't know how to use our skills, and usually, let's say that we are going to find some similar problems or some similar solutions, and then go through the nearest standard solution and then improve it and use it. This is the way that we research on it in the university, in the PhD levels, usually as a design by analogy. Let's say when we focus on the education system and we want to know what we are doing exactly for non-typical or non-standard solutions for the students, we usually say that we are helping the students to be more creative by let them learn some creative techniques. For example, there are lots of trial and error methods like brainstorming, morphological analysis that we learn or teach them to students and make them more skillful when they are faced with non-typical problems. Also, there are some systematic methods. Usually in the bachelor level, we learn some of them to the students, simulations, and now today we are talking about TRIZ. That is one of the strongest way to solve the non-typical problems. Let's look at the Iranian structure of the education. In the right hand, you can see that 90% of schools in Iran are public and only around 10% are private. It's okay, but let's say that we have more than 100,000 schools in Iran. That most of them use behaviorism as a learning theory. And just say among all these schools, we have only 50 schools that they are claiming to use cognitivism learning theory, and among them only 5 of them, that AboAyeneh school is one of them. We are trying to use constructivism learning theory to solve the problems or to educate the students or help them to improve themselves. On the right part, you can see that the 12 years education system is divided in 2 parts, into primary and secondary, each one in 6 years. Each one is divided in 2 again. That mostly we are knowledge-based in these 2 parts. It means that we let the children or teach the children the keywords of different fields of science or applied science, and some basic theories. For example, in physics, we let them know about different kind of motion, and then, for example, the first law of Newton's. And then when they are going to the university in the bachelor level, we let them know how to solve the standard problems of every applied science. So in improvement in the schools that we are talking about them, that they are less than 50, and they are claiming that they are cognitivism or constructivism. They are using discussions, experiments, multiple intelligences, or projects based on problem solving to improve themselves according to these learning theories. And also we can look in the parts of this, in the above part of this slide, that the schools that use these kind of techniques or methods or clues usually can be grouped in 3 different levels. The ones that suggest dedicate one course to problem solving, the one that try to change all the approaches of learning in different courses, for example, math, physics, literacy, or the others, and the final one that is really few ones that they are trying to change the structure of the school. For example, they don't think that the school is the school means that different courses together, but it can be like a workshop, a big workshop that the people are or the students are working in it and solving the problems. And okay, let's go through the other part. Now I am going to talk a little about TRIZ and give a big picture of it to you to then know how to use it for the education system. Genrich Altshuller, that he was a Russian guy, when he was 20 years old, started a scientific research by his past that he wanted to change the meaning of the creativity, that it was very close to the trial and error methods at that time in 1946 to a systematic approach for solving the problems. And his first result and letter to Stalin was in 1949. And around 7 years ago, he gave his first TRIZ application for even non-engineering problems. It means that he provide a way for any domain-free problem that now we can use it even for any kind of courses in education system. What TRIZ wants to do, as you see in this picture, when we want to solve a non-typical problem, usually we use trial and error methods, and it means that we try to develop as much as possible our idea generations and to cover all the fields to make more probable, or let's say that introduce probability to catch the target. But in the TRIZ, we are trying from the first to go to the yellow side. It means to go to the strong solutions and less and make less efforts in the trial and error methods and less usage of any kind of materials or others, or times, for example, and then after some amendments go directly to the most ideal solutions. This is the aim of the TRIZ, and TRIZ is acronym for the Russian phrase that you can see. Two different translation of it is in the English words if you search it, but the first one is more agreeable from the main researcher in this field, theory of solving inventive problems. It means that we have to find the inventive problem first and then go through to solve it. How Altshuller make the sentence for the TRIZ, he tried with some of his followers to study 200,000 patents, and among them 1/5 he find that they have the inventive problem, and then he classified them in 5 levels. And as you can see, from the first level up to the most difficult level, level 5, we see how it's the distribution of the different kind of these levels. Then he formulates again very obviously the meaning of the inventive problem, these 5 levels of problems and laws of solution, system evolution, and then some cues for the inventive principles for solving these kind of problems. And finally, he claimed that everybody was taught by TRIZ, and he knows that the TRIZ tools can be an inventor. And it was a new window for the education systems at that time. Look at more deeply on what TRIZ can do. As you know, logistic pattern or S-curve is one of the curves or one of the patterns that is proved in many different fields of science, for example, biology or the others. And it means that if we know the position of the a system or a live person on its S-curve, on its S-curve, then we can forecast the future and solve the problems according to the forecast point. It means that we don't need to go everywhere. We can find the strongest way by this way because we know the future. And you can see in the right part, for example, for one of the technical system that everyone substitute the others. And if we know exactly where it is the system among the analyzing the patents, so we can go and make the idea generation in the strong way. Okay, so TRIZ today is using very much for product design, service design, and if anybody wants to learn more about it, he can go to the design cognition field, design by analogy, and study the paper there. But let me introduce or explain a little bit about the inventive problem. Inventive problem is usually the gap between the desire or most desirable result that we want in one situation and the acceptable solution or a standard solution that we use always for that problem. Always there is a gap between them. And if we could define it as a contradiction among 2 or 3 parameters that they prevent us to go to the desirable or reach or achieve the desirable results, so we have the contradiction. And this contradiction, it's named inventive problem. And by some tools that were developed inside the TRIZ, we can get or we can generate conceptual solutions for that problem. How we go through this journey? We first analyze the situation, then we define exactly a specific problem that we are facing. Then instead of going trial and errors and, for example, try brainstorming and generate ideas, we go in an abstract level that these abstract levels comes out from the analysis, the patents, and then we go to the abstract solution and then come out and fix or make it more compatible with our situation and bring out the specific solution and then go to the evaluation. You can see here there are different level of abstraction in TRIZ, and for example, in the first level of abstraction we have more than 1,000 models, but in the upper abstraction model we have 11 models. Usually for the beginners, the first step is more easier to learn, but for the experts is usually the higher abstraction can let them to have the more strong ideas. Okay, here you can see some logos of the companies that they use TRIZ as a platform of their innovation today. And there are lots of conferences around the world among the engineers or designers, and also inside some of the companies. For example, the Samsung has every month a seminar inside its company, and lots of people are working with TRIZ. Let's go very quickly to the some experiences of TRIZ in schools or for kids. One of the strongest work is to Dr. Tatyana Sidrochko from Russia. She was working, I think, that around 12 years with kids in the kindergartens, and brings out some games, mental games, and the way that the teachers can touch with the students and let them to improve their imagination, thinking, or speech. And then with Nikolai Khomenko, who was one of the best students or co-workers with Altshuller, they bring out the Tautivity for Kids as a book, and it's translated and we can buy it in Amazon. The other one is the work of Mr. Nakagawa from Osaka University in Japan, that he goes and find the books that was used by Rubina in Russia, and he tried with one of his colleagues. Dolina is a Russian woman again, that they are translate them in English and use it for Japanese students, but not as a part of the course for a class. Now again, we are talking about the thinking approach group, that they were from Latvia, and they are more focusing on the teaching teachers that bring new lesson plans by using the thinking way in TRIZ. Then now we have another group in the France that were taught by Nikolai Khomenko again, and they just bring some cards, 8 card games, and it's again used in some voluntary schools, but it's not part of the education system. The other one that is mature ones was a project, European project as a lifelong learning program, as called Tetris. It's by Dr. Cascini, Italy. He was my supervisor in the PhD, and with late Nikolai Khomenko, they tried to simplify the TRIZ for secondary school students and bring out 5 animations to let them to learn it more. And it's again not in part of the educational system, but it's free for the people to use it. And nowadays we are seeing also Mr. Shin from South Korea that brings some storybooks for students and some cards, and these cards or books for the leisure time of kids. Okay, now let's go through our experience in Iran, AboAyeneh school. As I mentioned, our original contribution is that we looked all these experiences around the world and learning theories and try to bring out a school completely according to constructivism learning theory, and also using these different kind of experiences of the TRIZ in around the world. So now we can say that we are a private primary school for girls, because you know in Iran the schools for girls and boys are separated. Now we are trying it in for 3 years, and we have a building, 2 floors for classes, 8 class we have, and 1 floor for our innovation center. Now we have 50 students in 4 levels, because at the first level, first year we just get 2 levels of a student. We just registered them, and then we go in upper level with our students. It means, for example, next year we have the 4th level for students. Now we have 28 teachers and 15 startups. You can see some pictures about some of experiences of our students. For example, in somewhere you can see that we bring students out of the school to see the problems around them in the city. Some we go and let them to experience theater. Somewhere you see that there is a games that people are working with card games. Somewhere you can see that they are bringing out their ideas for the next yard of the school, or somewhere you can see that they are trying to transfer the water from the river to their house in the nature. Okay, let's go and see what we did exactly in our school. After IIITS, that it was our research group, and today also it supports us for our researches. We have 2 structures complementary to each other. First one, the school, that is aimed to bring out the annual calendar for each level with lots of attractive lesson plans for children that they are based on the games, problems, projects, and multiple intelligence. The other hand, we have startups. It means that the new company comers. It means that they are teachers that trying to what they bring out as the lesson plan in the school side, bring out some as a products for their companies, for the store. It means that they try in this way to let the other kids of Iran using also their products, even if they are not the students of our schools. And in this way, you know that they are trying to bring out digital games or learning applications or something like that. In this picture, you can see that all the our startups trying to bring out the real problems to the main part of the education, and our education is project-based, and we have 6 different aspects for evaluating the results of the projects. For example, one of them is about environmental aspects, the other is economical aspects, and the other ones, the other part, it must be very close to the books of the courses, that is the formal education system of Iran. It means if we have the permission of the educational system, we cannot just working on the real problems, and we know that children learn. They have to cover also the formal Iranian books, and so it needs lots of researchers for our teachers to compare them and bring out the ideas for them. In the right part, you can see we have a school, and we have also this idea for the future. Then when our students are going to a secondary school, or even after that, we can also support them in our innovation center or accelerators, and they can join us as part of our startup yeah, accelerating. Here you can see, maybe it's in Persian, and you can see that we have a school weekly schedule, and we have some startups in the left part, and every single startup knows that it must be covered some of these boxes, and then they are working exactly the plan for these boxes. I mean the games, physical games, board games, digital games, or any other media that they are produced. You can see here again in Persian, there every startup has bring out first its model of in developing the material, because we have to discuss about it a lot and we have to be sure that they are based on constructivism. Then you see here, we map out the books of the Iranian formal education system, but during the mapping or decoding these books, we are trying to make them in 2 parts, modeling and application. For example, when we want to work for the literacy, we say that it means that every kid must know that we are trying to think and develop our imagination or thinking to have messages to the world. And we use some models to bring out our messages. And when we use the language as a text, as a photo, or as a word, a speech, anyone, is an application to use to help us to bring out our messages or to communicate with the other peoples. And so if we want to bring out any game or any other media, we have to think that we are bringing out them in balance in 2 ways. For example, you can see three of our games for learning alphabets. These games are mostly in the way that the children can learn by themselves. It means that they don't need any teacher to teach them directly to learn the Persian alphabet. By their cards, step by step, go through to different games, and they learn by themselves. They are going to decode any words that they can select any book that they want from the beginning. And with the cards, they can find the voice or the how they can read it and how they can understand it. But for supporting it, we have also some animations for the kids that these, for example, two characters are using that board games, and by looking at these animations, the children learn how to learn by these cards, and there you go. But just few words about the results. You can see what we reduced by these kind of games and animations, the duration of learning of the Persian alphabet from the 8 months to 3 months. And also we covered lots of other materials in the school. For example, 20 storybooks. It means that it's, and the children can select the storybooks that they want differently from the other students. So it lets them go deeply by their path and through their interests. The other startup that has a special box in our schedule, weekly schedule, is called Panhareh. It means a window, and it's focused on the OTS and TRIZ games. As you see that these structures is come out from the Tautivity for Kids. It's the book of the Tatiana and Nikolai. And we also look at the other books in around the world and bring our stories and our games. We have exactly 3 books or 3 parts in the weekly schedule for it. And you see, for example, in the right column, that we bring out our games here for letting the children or the kids to learn trees by themselves. But just let me to conclude here very quickly what we did exactly in our school. Our journey was started 20 years ago by one project that the Iranian Education Ministry gave us, and then we couldn't forget this path, and we were very interested in it. So we go to get permission for a private school, and it was about 8 years that we get this permission from our ministry. And then because we had lots of discussion to make them sure that it can be worked in our country, then we start branding and broadcasting 1 year before opening the school. And you see here we use all of the social media as we can: Telegram channel, Instagram page, website, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, to make Iranian people know us and select us as a school, because it's a private school and people have to pay for it. As you see, we have more than 4,000 followers on an Instagram, and we have about 500 posts, videos, and posters to broadcast the way that we work with the children and the kids. A little about investment. You see, if we look at the project as a 30 years project, we have 10% for setup costs, and the other part 90% for current costs. And in the current cost, according to the Iranian situation, most of the cost is to the rent of the building, and then we have the other most part salary and insurance, and then some other ones. But we have a number here. It's in Persian currency, and we have also inflation rate in 3 years. Then, so if you want to know exactly all the budget we use, we have to bring out another number here. But if you want to know exactly or have a idea about that, you can see that total cost in 3 years is approximately 1,000 times more than monthly income of a teacher. It means that we spend around this in 3 years. And about our teachers, usually they are engineers that they continue their education in other field, education, philosophy, sociology in master and PhD. Mostly they are master and PhD. Their outcomes must be lesson plan, game, scenario, video clip, podcast. They bring out by themselves. They know all the tools for them, and also the reports, the evaluation of the work of the children. And as you can see, for the skills, we expect TRIZ, design, multitasking, resilience, and patience, and so on. And the responsibility is like maybe the other schools, and I don't go through it. But for employing or yes, to have our teachers, we have this process after evaluating their background, and we interview with them. Then we have pre-service educations about more than 100 hours, TRIZ level 1, learning theories, game design, and the others. And if they go successfully after that, they go to the internship around 100 hours, and then they come to our school and we work together. And again, through the work, we have always supervision, therapy, because therapy is from the psychology, and we know that in a constructivism learning theory, we have to focus a lot on it. And this is the way that we have our teachers. For the future, just the last slide, we want to develop model and experiences in Iran in different cities. Nowadays, we have some collaboration with some schools, mostly private ones, but there are some public ones too. The other, collaborating with TRIZ experts around the world because we need to think about the other cultures and how they can help us, or how we can share our experiences. And it means that projects with lab and research groups with universities. Nowadays, we are working with 2 universities in Iran, and projects to open new branches. Thank you very much letting me to share my experiences with you. I hope it was useful, and I am open to your questions.